It's time to talk draft. So let's get into it because mock drafts are a big part of the Baseball America world. And I think people are already kind of looking forward to what their team might put together when it comes to draft season in July at the All-Star break. And people are excited watching college baseball and thinking about what the possibilities could be, especially when we have players that shined last year in college baseball that are already making a major impact in this game. That includes Wyatt Langford. I'm sure we're going to see Paul Skeens at some point in the next few months. Carlos, great to see you. And where are we at in terms of mock draft world?
What's up, guys? Great to be here. Yeah, the mocks are actually already rolling in season, which feels crazy since we have several months to go until the draft. We actually had our first in-season mock of the year a few weeks ago. We had Charlie Condon, Georgia outfielder, third baseman, first baseman. He's really played all over the field so far this spring. He's in that top spot, but I do think it is still fairly wide open at this stage in the draft class. We kind of entered the year with a wide open field. There have been some players who have moved up the board. There have been some players who have gotten injured and dealt with maybe a little bit less performance than you would like to see. A few pitchers are even entering the top of the draft class conversation. So it is still fairly wide open. I'd say today, if the draft were to happen, Charlie Condon, Travis Bazana, those would probably be the favorites right now for 1-1, but it's been a fun draft to follow, and I imagine that'll only continue as we keep getting into really the full kind of meat of conference play here.
Let's spend some more time on Charlie Condon right now because of what he's doing on a historic level in the college baseball world. JJ, your observations of him thus far, and are you getting a lot of questions all over, BA socials and on the website about him?
I feel like I'm getting more questions than most because I am a UGA grad myself. So I have some UGA fan friends. Someone pointed out to me, we got to do a piece about this, that there aren't many schools out there. UCLA's one. I think there are a couple of others who've had a number one pick in the football, basketball, and baseball drafts. Georgia has multiple football players who've gone 1-1. They've had a number one basketball player, which is surprising considering Georgia basketball history, in Anthony Edwards. And Charlie Condon would mean that if he went 1-1, that they would actually have baseball then. But what Condon's done so far is kind of almost hard to fully wrap your brain around because he's hitting over 500 and leading the country in home runs. And currently, now again, it's only halfway through the season, but his slugging percentage would set the NCAA Division I record at the same time. So we haven't had anyone hit 500 in a very long time in Division I baseball. We haven't had anyone slug anything like this pretty much ever. Pete Incaviglia had a year he hit 49 homers, I believe, 48 homers, and he didn't slug this high as Charlie Condon has so far. Now, if you aren't paying a whole lot of attention to college baseball, we should note that offense is back at where it was kind of in the Gorilla Ball era. We are talking, 7 runs per team per game. You are seeing a lot of 20 to 15 games, 15 to nothing run rules, all that. So it is an offensive game in college baseball right now, Carlos. But that being said, it still doesn't explain and it still doesn't diminish what Charlie Condon's doing so far at the plate.
Not at all. And I think even if you compare Condon to some of the home run leaders in the last few years, he stacks up with those players. He's on pace, the same pace that Jack Caglione was a year ago when he led all Division I hitters with 33 home runs. He's well ahead of the pace that Ivan Melendez was, who led college baseball in home runs 2 years ago. So even in this home run inflated environment, he's well on the pace to get to 30 plus. I think considering his pure hitting ability, the advances that he's made with his approach and some of the contact ability. I mean, he is absolutely annihilating fastballs 92 plus, and he hasn't even really faced the full sort of bucket of quality heaters that he's going to see this year. As he gets through conference play a little bit more, I would expect the average to dip below 500. I guess that seems kind of insane that he is still hitting 500 this far into the season. But no, he has 70 grade raw power and is probably a plus hitter at this point. That kind of elite offensive package makes him one of the running favorites to be the 1-1 selection. And yeah, regardless of the offensive environment, it's pretty obvious to see just how powerful and strong Charlie Condon is.
So you mentioned he's played third, he's played left, he's played center, he's played right, he's played first. How much does that factor? One of the concerns we had kind of coming into this year with this draft class was we had a lot of guys at the top of the class who were seen Condon included, as kind of more pure bats without a whole lot of defensive value, or second baseman in a number of cases. Has Condon, by playing a little bit of everywhere, has that helped kind of ease some of those concerns, or is that not really making much difference because he's probably not going to be a center fielder long term?
I think absolutely. He probably isn't going to be a center fielder. It's been fun to see him play that position recently in the last few series that Georgia has had. But really, the number one thing for him to improve entering this year was just showing defensive versatility. One of my favorite pieces we do each season is just looking at the first round players entering the year and kind of looking at where are the areas they can improve. That defensive versatility was a real question with Condon. He had played mostly first base last year with Georgia, which was his first season on the field as a redshirt sophomore this year. And like you said, he's played third, he's played left, he's played right, he's played center. And scouts have thought he's looked pretty good moving around the field. He is more athletic, I think, than people expected him to be. Whether or not he improved significantly over the offseason or it was just always there, he's now getting a chance to showcase it. I think that is maybe up for debate. But regardless, he's looked really good. And this offensive profile at a corner outfield position, I think just makes you a little bit more excited than if you knew for sure he has to play first base. So he's going to get drafted based on the hitting ability and the power. But the fact that you can play him in a number of different positions just makes the package that more appealing.
Hey, Carlos, I know that the bonus pool money was announced today. So what can you tell us? And did anything stand out about it?
Yeah, so the bonus pools came out. That's obviously really important for baseball's draft, just given the dynamics that it works with, kind of how the players are selected. But the Guardians, maybe to no surprise, are number one with an $18 million pool. That was maybe not too surprising, just given them picking at the very top, the fact that they've got a couple extra picks. You've got Cincinnati and Colorado, 2 and 3. Again, not too surprising. They're top 3. You do flip Colorado and Cincinnati. Just given some of the extra picks and the fact that Colorado will be picking earlier in subsequent rounds after we get out of the first round, which is impacted by the draft lottery. The team that I kind of want to point out here, though, is Arizona. They're picking at 29, just given how far they went, obviously, into the World Series. They have a $12 million pool, more than $12 million pool. That's more money than all of the teams that are picking in the 18 to 30 round range. That's because they have a PPI pick that they got because of Corbin Carroll that added almost $3 million to their pool. That's because they also have a comp pick or a supplemental first round pick shortly after that as well. So they have a lot of leverage and bonus pool money to throw around relative to all of the teams picking around them. Maybe that's a chance for them to be a little bit more creative. Maybe they can slide a player who really fits in the middle of the first round and they can offer an overslot deal to get him to the back of the first round. Maybe they take a Mariners approach like last year and really just stack high upside high school players with those first 3 picks, go overslot and then save money later. But I always love when the bonus pools come out. You can really maybe figure out the teams to watch. Seattle or St. Louis picking 7, I think would be another team to mention. They kind of have the inverse problem that the D-backs have. They don't have as much bonus pool money as all of the other teams picking in the top 12. So maybe they're at a disadvantage picking in the top 10. So this is always just kind of interesting to look into. And now we kind of have the financials here. But it's a lot of money at the top. There's $9 million in slot value for each of the first 3 picks. And just last year was the first 2 years where we had any players signed for $9 million plus.
I'm going to give the basics here. If you're watching this, you're like, so what exactly are the bonus pools in the MLB draft? This is very important in the MLB draft because in baseball, you can spend up to your allotment if you sign all the players for 1 through 10, rounds 1 through 10. And that doesn't mean that you have to spend it on each individual pick. It is the pool of money that you have to spend. But the penalties for going over it, over 5%, over 4.99%, are such that no MLB team has ever been willing to exceed that. So this really is because you lose draft picks. So this is kind of not just picking at the top of the draft is obviously very valuable because you get to pick before other teams do. But like Carlos said, like when you have a team like Arizona who picks later but has more money to spend, there is some freedom with that because players do fall. We are talking about a draft where high school players and even college players in a lot of cases can go back to school. So signability does play a role in this, especially because you lose. If you don't sign your first round pick, you get a pick the next year, but you lose that pool allotment for that year's draft, for the draft you're in. So there's a lot of signability concerns with this. Having a bigger pool just gives you a lot more ammunition to do things you want to do in the draft. And the team also that jumps out to me on this, we're talking about a draft lottery now. We're talking about a situation where the worst teams in baseball do not get guaranteed the top picks the next year, which we had for a long time in baseball. We not only have that, though, we now have a situation where if you have 2 lottery picks in a row as a team that gets revenue sharing money, you don't get a third pick. So that's why Oakland wasn't even, gets hammered because of that. But Cincinnati standing out where they do, Cincinnati having the 3rd largest bonus pool of any team out there, really does jump out to me, because this is a team that should be kind of contending this year and is going to have kind of their choice of one of the top players in this class, and really the ability to spend a lot of money in this draft. That kind of is going to give them almost kind of the flexibility to maybe make some moves at the deadline that you wouldn't kind of be willing to do in another situation. But if you're adding one of the top players in the class, a top 100 prospect right away, maybe a couple even, that's going to give you the freedom if you need to make that move to bulk up the outfield, for instance, or to fill in for a pitching injury here or there. They're going to have some ammunition to do that in a way that a team who's picking 25 or 30 might not have the same opportunity.
Lots of draft talk over the next few months. Carlos, great to have you on here. We will be chatting quite frequently leading up to the draft.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.